France is in a state of political uncertainty as the 2022 presidential election approaches. Amid the collapse of France's traditional parties, Emmanuel Macron has consolidated power more than nearly any French president since Charles de Gaulle, and his La République en Marche party has increasingly established a hegemonic presence among the traditional centre-right electorate in France, while the opposition to his administration, particularly that of the left, remains incredibly weak and divided. Despite this consolidation of power, the French political system remains unstable. Prior to 2017, French politics was largely dominated by the centre-left Socialist Party, or PS, and the centre-right Republicans. However, both parties found themselves on the back foot going into 2017, amidst the growth of the Front National of Marine Le Pen. Macron soon emerged as the challenger for Le Pen, winning over the support of the French elite and centrists from both the PS and the Republicans, as well as the support of many smaller centrist parties. This won Macron the presidency and also control of the legislature, and has left French politics in disarray. The Republicans have remained deeply divided over their relationship to Macron and his administration. Many members have left the party to join LaREM or other parties supportive of Macron's administration. In fact, both prime ministers appointed by Macron, Edouard Philippe and Jean Castex, have previously been members of the Republicans. Castex, in fact, only left the party the day Macron appointed him prime minister. Going into 2022, the party and its allies are seeking a new direction to reclaim its control of the center-right electorate, now dominated by Macron. However, this is going to be very difficult for them. Since 2017, Macron has consistently tacked right, as evidenced by his appointment of Castex as prime minister, and this will make it even more difficult for the Republicans to find a space in French politics between Macron and Le Pen. After being trounced by Macron in the second round of the presidential election in 2017, Marine Le Pen's Front National has entered a phase of reorientation. The party's name has been changed to the Rassemblement National, or RN, and they've largely focused their efforts on retaining their base of support in preparation for Le Pen's 2022 presidential run. Despite this, the party remains a considerable threat in French politics, winning the most seats in the 2019 European parliamentary elections, and Le Pen remains a strong contender going into 2022, with polls showing her neck and neck with Macron in the first round. The French left is perhaps the most divided and disoriented as 2022 approaches. The PS, which dominated the French left for decades, has been severely weakened in the aftermath of François Hollande's presidency and the 2017 election. Much of the party's centrist and social liberal wing left to join LaREM in the run-up to the 2017 election. Meanwhile, in the party's left wing, many left to join Jean-Luc Melenchon's campaign and his France Insoumise party in the run-up to the 2017 election, while others rallied behind the party's left-wing candidate, Benoît Hamon, who ultimately won less than 7% of the vote in the presidential election, the worst result in the party's history. In the aftermath, the PS suffered even further splits from its left wing. The party's presidential candidate, Benoît Hamon, left to found Generations at the end of 2017. Soon after, he was followed by Emmanuel Morel, who formed the Republican and Socialist Left, which later aligned with Melenchon. This has left the PS with a rump faction of the center-left and social democratic wings of the party, and the party has been drastically searching for a new direction ever since. The PS has still managed to maintain its presence at nearly every level of French politics, but it has become increasingly reliant on alliances with smaller parties and struggled to regain its previous position as a significant force in French politics. Going into 2020, the PS is going to face serious challenges in maintaining its presence, let alone taking on Macron and Le Pen. France's hard left, often referred to as the anti-liberal left, has also been beset by division and a failure to capitalize on the moment that France finds itself in. From 2009 until the 2017 presidential election, the main parties of the anti-liberal left, the French Communist Party, PCF, Jean-Luc Melenchon's Parti de Gauche, and the anti-capitalist, eco-socialist, and feminist party Ensemble, had been united under the banner of the Front de Gauche. However, by 2016, the Front was in freefall, and Melenchon and his party broke with the Front to establish La France Insoumise as a platform for Melenchon's 2017 presidential run. The PCF and Ensemble ultimately chose to endorse Melenchon's candidacy, but without joining his movement. Melenchon also attracted the support of defectors from the PS and dissident members of the Europe Ecologie-Les Verts party, the main Green Party in France, EELV, like Grenoble Mayor Eric Piolle. After the first round of the 2017 presidential election, in which Melenchon took 19.6% of the vote, far ahead of Hamon in the PS and within striking distance of the Republicans' candidate, François Fillon, it appeared that Melenchon and his La France Insoumise movement were poised to be the leading party of the French left in the wake of the PS's collapse. However, hopes were soon dashed. Negotiations between La France Insoumise and the PCF broke down in the lead-up to the legislative elections, and in some areas, the PCF and La France Insoumise contested for the same seats. This severely strained relationship between the two parties has existed ever since, although Ensemble and La France Insoumise have maintained a much more cooperative relationship. La France Insoumise launched a vigorous campaign, attacking the PS, leading Piolle to accuse Melenchon of employing a scorched earth strategy. In the end, La France Insoumise won only 17 seats out of more than 400 seats contested. While more seats than the PCF and enough to form its own parliamentary group, which was joined by Ensemble, the result was relatively lackluster. Since then, La France Insoumise has been beset by internal disagreements regarding a lack of internal democracy and an unelected leadership, and its support has further declined due to poor strategy, a failure to capitalize on popular discontent, and a fairly ambiguous message, as well as an unclear program, which in some ways has reduced the movement to a protest vote. In the 2019 European elections, the movement won less than 7% of the vote. Meanwhile, the PCF has been in a state of flux and transition. Although the PCF won 10 seats in the legislative elections in 2017, relations between them and La France Insoumise have remained strained ever since. In 2018, the National Secretary, Pierre Laurent, who was widely criticized for his support of Melenchon, stepped down, and at the party congress in November was replaced by Fabien Roussel. The PCF also adopted a new program at that congress, co-authored by Roussel and MP André Cassagnier, which emphasized the autonomy and identity of the PCF and further distanced the party from La France Insoumise. To that end, Roussel has declared his desire for the PCF to present its own candidate for president in 2022, and in the European elections, the PCF fielded its own slate of candidates. However, their European campaign was an unmitigated disaster. The PCF won only 2.4% of the vote and lost all of their MEPs, marking the first time the PCF has gone unrepresented in the European Parliament. In contrast to the parties of the hard left and the PS, the ecologist EELV have seen a partial resurgence. In 2017, the EELV were in perhaps the weakest state of all the major parties of the French left. Their presidential candidate, Yannick Jadot, withdrew 2 months before the election, after forging an agreement with Emon in which the EELV would formally endorse Emon's candidacy, and an alliance would be formed with the PS for the legislative elections. This alliance ended in disaster, and the EELV lost all their seats apart from Eric Alauzet, who soon after left the EELV to join La Rem. Despite this, the EELV has recovered significantly since 2017. The first major success came in the European elections, where they performed far beyond expectations, coming in third place with 13% of the vote and winning 13 MEPs, far ahead of the Republicans, La France Insoumise, and the PS. This success was replicated in the 2020 local elections, where the EELV made significant gains, winning control of Lyon, Strasbourg, and Bordeaux, and maintaining control of Grenoble, often through alliances with other left groups like the PS, PCF, and La France Insoumise. In these alliances, however, the EELV played the role as the leading party. It remains, however, to be seen if the EELV can forge a similar alliance at the national level. It is important to note, however, that there is significant division within the EELV over its relationship with the left and its strategic and ideological orientation. While some members, like Cécile Duflot and Eric Piolle, expressly identify as leftists and seek to orient the party towards other parties of the left, especially those of the anti-liberal left, Jadot, who remains a leading figure within the party, has argued that the EELV should be beyond the left-right divide, focused primarily on the environment, and has also stated his goal as trying to unite the left and center around the issue of the environment. While the party did define itself in the European elections as progressive, anti-liberal, and committed to systemic change, the party's precise position within the left is difficult to pin down. This may present challenges for the EELV and the left as a whole in 2022. In addition to the major parties of the left, several new parties have emerged since 2017. Generations, the Republican and Socialist Left, and Place Publique. Generations was established in 2017 following Benoît Hamon's departure from the PS. He was soon joined by several other PS politicians, including 3 members of the European Parliament and a member of the National Assembly. Its platform is to the left of the PS and shares some similarities with La France Insoumise, namely its support for a Sixth Republic and its adherence to democratic socialism and eco-socialism. However, it tends to be slightly more moderate than Melenchon's movement. The two also diverge on the issue of Europe. While La France Insoumise is Eurosceptic, favoring the renegotiation of EU treaties and a democratic refoundation of the European project, or failing that, a French exit from the EU, Generations is explicitly pro-EU and tends to favor European federalism. In this regard, Generations could be seen as occupying a space between the left wing of the EELV and La France Insoumise. The party is a member of former Greek finance minister Yanis Varoufakis' DiEM25 movement, and formed part of his pan-European coalition in the European elections in 2019, European Spring. However, the party won just over 3% of the vote, roughly half of the result for the PS and La France Insoumise, and failed to win any seats. In the local elections, it formed alliances with the PS and EELV in most areas, while it saw little success on its own. The Republican and Socialist Left, or GRS, was founded as a split from the PS in 2018 by Emmanuel Morel and Marie-Noëlle Linnemann. The GRS quickly joined forces with Melenchon's La France Insoumise, running on La France Insoumise's list in the European elections, gaining an MEP. However, this was not without controversy. GRS tends to be more moderate in its outlook than La France Insoumise, and when Morel first spoke at an event hosted by La France Insoumise, he received a rather mixed reaction, according to L'Express, and some in the audience booed his speech, objecting to his moderate outlook and positive references to the presidency of François Mitterrand. Finally, Place Publique was established in August 2018, founded by journalist Raphael Glucksmann, economist Thomas Porcher, ecological activist Claire Nouvienne, and PS politician Joe Spiegel. The party is the most moderate of the new formations, taking a much more social democratic, if not socially liberal, position, and was founded with the goal of uniting the pro-European left. It has been regarded by some as an alternative to Melenchon's La France Insoumise, although Glucksmann has denied this. The party ran on a joint ticket with the PS in the 2019 European elections, with Glucksmann as the lead candidate. But as a result of the alliance, Porcher and Nouvienne resigned from the party, with Porcher denouncing the alliance as a list of apparatchiks. They ultimately won 2 out of the 6 seats that the PS and its allies won in the European elections. Heading into 2022, we find a left that is fractured and looking for a direction. The PS is adrift in the new political reality and searching for a new direction. La France Insoumise has struggled to tap into popular discontent and has failed to build bridges with other parties on the left. The PCF is determined to reassert its autonomy and identity, and the new parties have largely united with larger parties or have struggled to gain considerable traction on their own. The EELV is the only party that's managed to increase its popular support, but it remains to be seen if they can successfully forge and lead an alliance of the left capable of overtaking Macron and Le Pen, and the party remains internally divided over their relationship to the other parties of the left. The divisions among the French left are going to be a serious challenge for the left to overcome, and it remains to be seen which, if any party, can rally the left's electorate in time for 2022. In the next episode, I'll be covering some of the potential candidates from the left-wing parties to find which candidate could mount a serious challenge to Macron and Le Pen. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and if you didn't like it, please be sure to leave a comment and let me know where I went wrong. Also be sure to check out my other videos. And if it is within your means to do so, please be sure to support me on Patreon. Thank you so much, and solidarity.